Thank you everyone for coming. And before I introduce myself, I do want to introduce one of the students here, and I'll have him, like Dr. Dave mentioned him, but I'll also have Daniel to talk about the ISP, the Indigenous Society of Psychologists student organization. And
thank you, everyone. I can see share Haji SASO Kushutana Stipeta, Tamayame Hankata, Kashime Hankata, Ue Se Opa, Henel, Nuteta School, Necha Show. Thank you, everyone, for having me here. My name is Daniel Terrell. I am from Tamaya Pueblo. And so who we are as Indigenous Society of Psychologists is we are a small but active RSO here, a student organization. And what we do with ISP is that we promote things like this, Indigenous Healing workshops. We also provide information about mental health, whether it be alcohol safety. Recently we did a suicide awareness panel. And so we promote de-stress events or events promoting and bringing awareness towards Indigenous mental health. And so we have our table up above. Recently we did Orange T-shirt Day, which promoted awareness to all of the boarding schools around the globe, bring awareness to all the children who passed away during that time. And so we bring awareness, respect, and all children lives matter. So things like that. And feel free to take a flyer there promoting our meeting times and things like that. And one thing I want to make sure to let everyone know is that you don't have to be Indigenous nor a psych major to join. So it's open to everyone who is passionate about mental health, wants to promote these things and whatnot. So thank you, Gerald, for having me.
thanks, Daniel. Myself and Dr. Amanita Beckstein are co-advisors to the ISP organization. We're happy to work with the student organization. Myself and Amanita are the members of the professional organization, which is Society of Indigenous Psychologists. The ISP is the student branch of the organization, so which is pretty awesome. So let me introduce myself. My name is I'm gonna do my best. Like I said, in my language. She Gerald Shorty, she Hachi Bashishi, Touching is Slin, Twitchini Bashishi, Ashihi, Dasache, Nake the Ne, Dashanale. And I am from Shiprock, New Mexico. I identify with the Navajo tribe. Born and raised in Shiprock, New Mexico. And part of my journey and getting, at least my academic journey and getting here too, which is a big part of my identity too, is that I went to boarding school from kindergarten to 6th grade, and then also went to school in Shiprock from there on. So so welcome everyone for coming to this presentation. And I also want to share that when I was offered to or be invited to present here, I'm really honored to present. I was also a little hesitant, I will say that, and because I'm not a traditional healer. I have, and which I'll share in this presentation, participated and been involved in and visited and talked with Indigenous healers and been in ceremony events. So I'll share some of my experience and probably from also to mention some things and how it correlates with even psychology too as well. Like at least I don't know if I didn't say, but I'm a psychologist. So I got my PhD in counseling psychology at Arizona State. And so even throughout my whole identity development within my, not only my identity as with my tribe and my culture, I was getting to know and getting familiar with getting to know my tribe and getting to know about practices and things like that. So I'm still also familiarizing myself with a lot of things. So I hope that I can do my, I guess I'm hoping that I can do it justice, because that's something that I was a little bit hesitant about, because most people, at least in my community, they've had family members that they come from most healers come from family members of other healers, and I don't come from that kind of family. So I've been to events and I've heard people speak of it, and I'm gonna do my best to try to hopefully talk about it in a way where I feel like it does justice to it. So I just wanted to just mention that disclaimer. And let's see, there was one other thing. And this is actually, I want to also say that this is my first, I've presented several times, like representing counseling centers, because this is my 6th counseling center I've been at, and to speak on various topics, always representing the counseling center. And I've always gotten invited to speak, or someone's talked to me and say, can you speak on maybe this topic or other topics? And other times, either some things conflicted, or maybe I was a little hesitant about, I'm not maybe an expert in certain kind of, at least within this topic. So I decided to be open to doing this. And so this is like my official first one, at least within this topic. Other than that, I presented like on my thesis, dissertation, and other topics. So this is like, so hopefully it goes as well as I hope it does in my head. If not, it's a good learning experience for me. So I've been here at Fort Lewis College since January. Happy to be here, getting to know the student population, the community, and as most of you already know, in the Southwest, there's many indigenous tribes and native tribes around this area. So, so hearing about either indigenous healing practices, our events, our communicating with other people from different tribes is very common, and we're really privileged to have all this culture here in this area. As a person who's been like different parts of the country, I feel like I was always lacking some of that, and that's one of the things I feel good about when I come back to my community, and I feel really happy to just see other people that I can relate to and that have similar beliefs and values, and also get my sense of humor too, because I feel like Native humor is I don't know, it's just different from other sense of humor. So that I'm glad to be back in the area. So I want to start with the first slide. And we'll start. All right, so that's my introduction. So if you can like take a moment, like maybe talk to your neighbor or somebody and talk to each other about what is healing and how do you heal? Because we're going to talk about that today, and I'm going to have like maybe like some perspectives on that, but I want you all to kind of talk about that and see what you all come up with. So if you can take a moment to maybe talk to your neighbor or somebody here and answer the question, what is healing, and also how do you heal? So feel free. Thank you for sharing, you two. And I want to just say, like, healing looks, as we just heard the 2 responses, and I'm sure everyone here probably during the responses had different ways. They define healing in different ways, and they define also how different, they probably share different methods of what healing looks like for them. So it can take many forms. And at the end of the day, it's always like, what works for you? How do you heal? What is healing about for you? And then what works, and also recognizing what doesn't work for you too. I think that's part of the process too. What probably maybe makes things a lot more difficult or a lot more challenging for you as well. So those things are good insight and awareness to you. And so I know, like, as we talk about healing, like, you know, like the definition of healing is like, has different kind of, at least here in this dictionary definition, but it can take many forms. And like, maybe it's like overcoming something, or some form of relief, or maybe growing from something, you know, so, or things like that. So just saying that, that's why I gave you all this exercise to have you all perception, you have develop your own perception of what healing looks like and what it is, and also to how maybe you may heal from certain things. So I hope you can continue to kind of explore that, and it can change too through time. Maybe at certain points in your life, or maybe with certain kind of issues or concerns, healing looks one specific way, but maybe for a different thing, healing is another kind of way or method or approach too as well. So I think just recognizing that it can be very fluid, and it can be very flexible, and it can look different at times too as well. So as we studied this a few times, anybody who's probably taken a psychology or sociology kind of course has probably seen this model a few times. Atkinson, Moore, and Sue came up with this racial and cultural developmental model, and it's often used a lot when it comes to people's, like, how people, if they're kind of like maybe at trying to understand what stage you are in your identity or racial or cultural identity phase, or, you know, or what stage you are in or whatever. So it is often kind of looked at. So at least when we're comparing like ethnic groups to like maybe to the dominant culture, like in this case, like comparing people to like the Western white culture. So oftentimes, like, you know, like conformity means like maybe they really identify with the Western culture, you know, and then there's at some point they go through some dissonance, and then we start questioning maybe the white culture, and to begin to have maybe some interest in their cultural or tribal identity or whatever identity, racial, ethnic identity. Then resistance to, they completely withdraw from the dominant culture and start to like dive into and like start identifying with their culture and ethnic identity to have the development of new identity, but eventually getting to this point where they can kind of like integrate both identities. We're getting to recognizing that, okay, I have my, in this case, like tribal identity, and then I also have my identity within the Western culture as well, and I can live fluidly in both worlds and utilize both approaches in functioning, in wellness, and also living in a healthy kind of balanced way. And so it kind of looks at it like modernly today, you know, I'm here talking English, I'm wearing Western clothes, I drive a car, and a lot of things, you know, maybe I eat foods that are of different cultures. So I'm very like integrated too as well. And I share beliefs from not only within my tribal beliefs, but then there are some things that I picked up along the way from different kind of cultures or different kind of groups as well, that I identify and share, and are that I adopted. So things like that. So I like to think that maybe I'm at the, you know, I'm integrated. But I know at some points, maybe at some stages in people's lives, whatever maybe political issue that is happening or going on, there may be some resistance or some distance or dissonance from like certain kind of maybe groups, as you're probably in your process in dealing with certain kind of things. But oftentimes this is the one that is often referred to, and I hope I can reconnect things back to this model throughout the presentation. So when I was like preparing for this presentation, I think it's really important to acknowledge that the American Indian Religious Freedom Act was just, I feel like when we talk, at least when I go back to my community and talk about traditional practices and spirituality, ceremonies, and whatever it may be, and I can see, and probably other tribes that are here present, here at least in the U.S., probably have that long history of probably these traditions passed down like through time. But however, though, the government didn't like really acknowledge and say that it was okay to practice that until like they passed this act in 1978. So before that, it was prohibited. And so, but that's one of the challenges that was probably within this, that was challenges in like probably being able to practice your religion or your traditions or your cultural kind of like maybe ceremonies or events was a little bit that was another things that you had to probably deal with during that time. that it may have probably even affected like perceptions of that kind of approach, or how you can probably heal or have like a sense of like maybe your identity and feeling comfortable too as well. And then recognizing too, I, at least for me, when people ask me too, like, what are some main things that maybe contributed to a lot of like Indigenous or Native American kind of concerns here in like the United States? I think a lot of times, I mean, having done research several times, at least with having taught some classes on like Native American culture and awareness, and also like appreciation and things like that. And I always look back at like the times, you know, the boarding school in the early 1900s. I feel like that during that time, a lot of our customs or traditions or even language was really impacted. And when we were like, when tribes were like forced from their homes, forced to not speak their language, practice their culture, and maybe not even sing. So a lot of the practices and maybe even prayers and blessings, and those things were like maybe lost, or maybe misinterpreted, or maybe there was some confusion around that. And that's how like we were impacted along the way, at least in our ways, and how we probably healed, the way we probably celebrated our identity, the way we bless, and the way we probably gave thanks. Because when we talk about Indigenous healing, it's not just like at least it's not just like when I go see a healer, I'm not just going to see them when I have problems or concerns. The way sometimes it can be blessings, you know. When I graduated my PhD, like I had to, I mean, I chose to, and not like I had to, but I felt like I needed to get a blessing. Like, you know, thank my family and the people that were involved, and even like go give thanks to, like in my culture they say the holy ones, you know, thank you for making me accomplish this, helping me get here, having the strength, the guidance. So and that was just my way of, you know, like praising and thank you for these blessings. And that happens too. Like I know it happens when people have children too as well, and it happens when people reach certain milestones in their lives. And so they reached like serve the service of a healer to just celebrate and bless them for just things that they're accomplishing, or it may not even be a major accomplishment, but just I just want to get a blessing. So say thank you for my existence, thank you for me being healthy, thank you for just the things I have going on in my life. So I want to just kind of mention that, like when we think of traditional healing or practices, it's not just like going to seek services for that, like when you're dealing with problems. It can just also be, you know, I want to make an offering, or, you know, or have a blessing done for all the things that were going well. So I want to mention this because, like, at least this act and also the historical kind of traumas that Indigenous and Native folks have dealt with within like within the past century, and or within years and things like that, have definitely impacted a lot of probably how our ways, and like how we kind of maybe treat and heal and bless things. And I talked to several people, and I don't know how accurate this is, but I'll share, like talking to an Indigenous healer one time, at least within my tribe. He at least when he described it, he said, he was saying like, we've had so many blessings. Like he was like telling me, and it was like, he said, we had this and this for that. And he said, you know how many ceremonies now that we can do? At least in his words, and I'm just sharing the story he told me. He was like, we have 21 now. And there was a time where we had like over 100 for different kind of things. And he said that got lost through time. And he said that got lost through like all the trauma we've experienced in our tribe. And I got lost, passed down to like, because we became also acculturated so much, and like youth and other folks or other people, like the teachings aren't being passed, or maybe it was just affected because like because of the like I would say like boarding school or other kind of traumas that we experienced. So like it's kind of like it's been affected through those kind of experiences. And so, and it was sad to hear that from him, and just kind of him to share like some of these teachings and these things not really probably being intact like they should have been, if there was probably no like interference in that kind of negative kind of way. So so as I talk about this, like one of the things I love about this campus, like really, really love about this campus, is that students come here, like they celebrate their identity, like they dress traditional, they speak Daniels, like other folks speak their native language or indigenous language, and people like come to the classrooms and also like mention things that would like in classrooms, like maybe their indigenous beliefs and like maybe astronomy or chemistry and things like that, you know, or different kind of studies. And so that's the one things I appreciate about here, like they're recognizing that, you know, like their tribes or their indigenous villages have also contributed a lot to like Western philosophies too as well, or maybe how modern things are going right now. So that's one things I appreciate about this campus. So I want to say, I'm saying that because I feel like this certain, like there's been a shift where there's been a lot of celebration, appreciation, acknowledgement, and about like reconnecting, reestablishing, and building up this like ways of like maybe how we kind of live and how we look at the world from not only like multiple perspectives, but also like the indigenous native perspectives as well. So that's one of the things I see on this campus, which I appreciate. So, and just makes me really feel really good. So not to just, I do want to say that, yeah, this thing did impact our history and our like current ways and how we see the world too, or how we probably like our customs and our practices and traditions. But I like the idea that it's also coming back. I feel it feels like that. So let me use this instead. So I wanted to share like so as I was preparing for this presentation too as well, people were saying to me like because I'm not like I said, an indigenous healer, but at least I had some people say you have more insight than probably some other non-Westerners, so maybe you could still speak to this. And one of the things I want to say, when I participate in either in a ceremony or a blessing, some things I've been taught like that I really feel like is really helpful in the process, and probably just in also to like the medicine men too, like or medicine women that I have visited and seen, and even my family too that have like shared with me. And so one of the things I think that I always mention, I don't know if any of y'all have ever participated in like any of these events, but attending with a positive mindset, attending with a good heart, good intentions, all of that, because they say like you want to have good energy, you want to make sure that you're bringing good vibes. So coming to some of these events and opposite mindset can really probably impact what's probably really happening at these events. So that's why they always kind of say, and like that's why they say how even I like the idea, like when people I've heard too like say, when you prepare food with a good mind, positive. And so that way, like when it feeds people too, like, or even yourself, it's making you feel positive and well too. So it's just like something similar to that. So which I really appreciate. And so like you're also thinking positive, not only yourself, but others, and even like the prayer and blessing that's going to be happening. And you're also thinking positive about the outcome of why this event is even happening. So, and the other thing, which is really important too, is having respect. And often we've had 4 indigenous kind of blessings and prayers here on this campus since January. And a lot of times people ask me from not only like even non-indigenous native folks, like they ask me, like, can I come and should I be there? And, as a person who's really big on making sure that everybody, there's inclusion and that everybody belongs. And they always ask me, how should I show up? And one of the things is like, showing up with, like I said, be positive and have like, be respectful, be respectful of what's being taught, what's being done. Be respectful to the people that are there, your surroundings, like the space where it's happening, and respectful of the healing process. And so, and like having not coming to these spaces with like some kind of maybe substances too as well. I had one of the healers that visited in this past semester. I asked him, like, I go to Shiprock Fair, and that's the fair I love to be at, and they have the Yebache ceremony there too, like during the Shiprock Fair. And I asked him, hey, are you gonna go to the Yebache? I'll definitely be there, like, because I like to just be, there's a good energy, I feel it, and it feels really good. But as a person from Shiprock that's been there, grew up, and been there like every year to the fair, well, except for 1 year, and he said he doesn't go no more, unfortunately. He said because like sometimes there'll be intoxicated people there, and they're to just be disrespectful about the process, either being too loud or either maybe trying to start fights or etc. And so that's something that I feel like is very sad. And I think like that's why I feel like the respect part is really important. And I go to like some Kinel Dust too, like maybe on the Navajo reservation too during the summer, and I've been to some where unfortunately some people there are intoxicated, and like it doesn't feel good for the people involved and the people that are getting these ceremony and blessings done, that it can feel very like someone's being disrespectful. So I hope, like I hope that people can be respectful of these events. There's a time and place for those things, but at least in these situations, it is like not one of those places where you want to show up in that kind of manner. And I hope that people choose not to. So, and then dressing accordingly is one thing. Sometimes traditional attire is recommended. I feel like that's oftentimes recommended and preferred if possible. I know one time, at least for me, I used to live in Las Vegas, and I was driving all the way back to the reservation for a ceremony, but I just got there just like about 20 minutes probably, or 15 minutes before it. And I was just like wearing comfort clothes, just like dry fit and shorts. And I sat through the whole thing. And at the end, I remember the medicine man was like, he gave the speech, and one of the speech was like, you want to show up dressed for this event. You got to have respect for that kind of way. So next time, make sure you're dressed appropriately, not like dressed and then like basically like workout clothes like I was. So that's one thing I think, to that how you can show up to these events too as well. And I understand too, like sometimes blessings happen, like maybe in a hospital or something like that. There, that's understandable circumstances, so things like that. But if there's an event that you're going to a blessing, one of the things that they recommend is dress accordingly, traditionally, if you have the attire. If not, at least dress like, in a somewhat professional, appropriate kind of manner too as well. And one of the things, like just like we do when we have our traditional leaders come to our campus, is that we provide food for them, like and beverages, water or coffee. And I feel like the and having some traditional foods is ideal, and like often recommended, but sometimes that's not available sometimes. So, but you want to welcome a healer like with like at least having that. And also like we're very fortunate enough too that like when the healers come to that campus, that we provide them with tobacco. So that's been a tradition that we've been starting here at Fort Lewis College as well. And I want to say too, like I think it's really important to listen during the process, even if you don't understand the language. We plan to have like different various tribes come here for either blessings or healings. Talking to a student right now about seeing about bringing a Pueblo healer to the campus like in the spring. Hopefully that works out. I don't speak the language, but I definitely looking forward to it and participating in it, and showing up like in these kind of ways too as well that I'm talking about. And you know, that's why sometimes they say sing along if you can, and you do your best within their language too as well, or the language that is being spoken, and be attentive. Some of you have probably been in ceremonies where, like, especially when there's little ones, you know, like I feel like the little ones get a pass and falling asleep if it's like you're in there like all night, like, but other than that, for adults or at least when you're like, I feel like 12 on up, they say you got to be up. So you make sure like you get the rest you need if you know it's going to be a late kind of a night or a ceremonial event. So that way you can be tentative and awake throughout the whole process. And so these are just some ways, like some adequate, just how to show up for these kind of events. And this is probably different across tribes and probably different across healers too as well. Is like, which I'll talk about a little later, but at least since we're talking about approach here, is some healers prefer it's cross. I don't want to say it's like this for everyone. Some healers prefer payment before the event. Some healers do not accept payment. Some people will just say it's up to you, and it can just be like foods or whatever you can like in trade or whatever you do. And some of it's just like they know they don't want, so it's really up to the healer themselves. So just some things to kind of consider and think about too. And that's something that I have those conversations with the healers that have come to campus too, like about how they want that to be either compensated or not. You know, obviously at Fort Lewis College, as me especially too, I feel like there's, you know, I have so much respect for them. Like I feel like I want to pay them the highest that we can. And then so it's some like sometimes we say they're like, no, I don't want, and that's not why I'm here for. We're here to do blessing, and I don't put a price on that. And still though, I still feel like, you know, I should give you something though, because you are doing a service here. You're taking time out of your schedule, you drove here, all those kind of things. And so we still at least still compensate them or give them something. So that's something I think to always keep in mind. And as at least when we're requesting for healing services. So I mentioned this because like I feel like we're shifting, which is kind of really awesome too. I really do feel like this is really cool. So who like has said that, you know, like they identify at least traditional and faith healers has been developing among their populations, and it's increasing in terms of like a form of healthcare services. And also too, they identified, they call it TAFH. These are individuals who use sacred ritual ceremonies, talism, and divination and prayer to treat mental illnesses. And also too, like, I think when the part that I see too here is like, community members may see it more accessible and more affordable. I feel like when we think about healthcare services in this country, sometimes it's like can be expensive, and so sometimes it can also be challenging, especially if you live in a rural area or an area where like maybe it's not accessible, or maybe it's not like your clinic or whatever like that. So finding a healer to maybe deal with some of the things that you're going through may be more accessible and maybe more affordable to you as well. And so, and also too, like at least when I think of like the healing process, sometimes they can provide when I think of like traditional healing approaches, I feel like they always like have a cultural relevant explanation to your concern or your issue or whatever you're going through. And they can be also helpful in the diagnosis kind of process and recommendation of terms of treatment, whether it be like a certain kind of ceremony that you may need to kind of deal with a certain issue, or maybe just making recommendation too, also too, like, you know, like we get this ceremony done, but also to go to make sure you go to the hospital or clinic to get this treatment for whatever you're physically going through as well. So that's the part where I feel like the integration part plays a role again. I think a lot of us in here, when we probably experience some kind of either illness, even just a cold, we have cold medicine that we utilize that is Western more kind of approaches or whatever. We utilize that in addition. I think sometimes too, like in the healing process too, maybe our other indigenous kind of herbs or healing methods approaches as well. So I feel like the integration part plays a role again in our healing process as well, at least when we think of like from indigenous and Western kind of healing perspectives. So as like I said, part of the moving forward kind of process in developing this is that the National Institute of Health and Natural Center and Complementary Alternative Medicine recognize traditional healing as an approach to healthcare services. So I feel like this is something that's developing. And one thing that I've been hearing, and at least I met a healer we've had last spring too. He works at IHS in Red Mesa, Ernest Begay, and that's been something that's been like integrated in the care of like services. And I think this is something, if I feel like even Ignacio and the Southern Youth Health Center too as well are having these integrated in their health services as well. And even now we've had healers even on this campus. As a member of the counseling center, we recognize that this population on this campus is like 50% indigenous, and we recognize that healing and treatment, it comes in various different forms, not just Western approaches. That's why we've had these places, had events or situations where we've been fortunate enough to bring indigenous healers to come on campus to either treat or heal or even bless certain kind of things. So it's been, I feel like that's one of the amazing things, like at least it's being recognized as a way of potentially healing and treating. And if we look back, like I said, like before the act probably came in 1978, or maybe during those times or earlier times, it wasn't even considered a way as an approach. So this is one thing that I feel like that I'm very excited about, that I feel like it's moving in a direction that I feel like is also helpful to indigenous folks, and not like, unfortunately, like probably some of our elders where during that time there was probably some shame around it and some guilt around it, and probably maybe some legal consequences too as well behind that. So and I think the one thing that at least one of my goals too as well on campus, hang on. I know some other colleagues that I know of have started this, but one of my goals for Fort Lewis College is that when we get to a space where it can be, maybe we get to a space where it's consistent that these services are being utilized, which by the way, I'm happy to announce that when we have healers coming to campus. And then getting to, as a researcher, maybe getting to a point where we can measure the progress, measure how it's being effective, how it's like helping our students from either mental health and wellness, or maybe even academic kind of like maybe progress or performance, things like that, because that is some things that I feel like there's a tons of research on different kind of like maybe approaches, even psychotherapy approaches, or maybe like health approaches but this is an area where it's fairly new to research. And I as a person who is identifies within the tribe and seeing the effectiveness of this, I'm excited that hopefully that maybe the results can be like, positive, and that it could be like incorporated into like health centers, like which we're seeing now on the reservations, and then also to like maybe other places too beyond that too as well. So a little bit about this. Like I was saying, like at least when people get things done, I like the idea that you have a positive mindset about like the outcome. The outcome like is really important. And I know when I used to sit through ceremony, at least the medicine man would always say, you have to believe the process. You have to believe that it'll work. If you don't believe that this will work, then you get to a space where it's not going to work for you. It's not going to cure you. It's not going to get better. Things like that. So that's a big, big part. As I had like ceremonies done for myself or my family or my son, like I sat there with positive mindset, visualizing and praying and blessing and thinking of the best outcome possible, and not allowing the space where like anything negative can be in my mind. So that's something that I feel like is something that healers have always have said to me. So really believing that process. And so that's something that may be helpful. And I also look at it like from a mindfulness. As a therapist, I think of mindful therapy. I think like true mindfulness is being aware of your settings, your surroundings, of your senses, what you hear, what you feel, what you can taste, and what you can, grounding yourself, all those kind of things. So I feel like when you're in ceremony, you can be very grounded with all these senses. And also too, you can get to a space where, at least in my experience, when I'm in those events or those ceremonies, I feel like my mind is the most clearest it can be. I'm like stress-free because I'm really in the here and now, and I'm taking everything in. So, and that's when I do mindfulness and therapy, I always just tell my clients, think in the now. And I say like, because oftentimes mindfulness can be really helpful in stress management. And as you do stress management, because like oftentimes we're stressed about something future oriented, something we're worried about that is coming up, or sometimes we're stressed about something past oriented, something that we just experienced and went through. So when I say mindfulness, try to be in the here and now. Like I just say, imagine yourself when you get home, you sit in your room. If you just were in the here and now, you're probably like, there's no stressful situation like that you're running from or that you're dealing with in that moment. And if you can just be true mindfulness about like, okay, I'm safe, I'm comfortable, and that you can maybe just take into things going on in that moment, and you can have some relief, some peace, some comfort. That can just be really like relieving, and it can be relaxing. So it can be hopefully reduce some stress in your stress management. So when I think of like ceremonial practices, I feel like that's what you experience. You're connecting with your body, you're grounding yourself, you're connecting with your senses, you're connecting with the environment around you. And you're looking it through like the most positive, gentle kind of way. And I feel that's something that I feel like the healing process is allowing you to connect with your thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations and environment. I added this quote here. And so anybody who knows me, I'm a really big Tupac fan. And if you read my dissertation, you probably will see a quote there just as well. So I talk about one of the things, I guess, let me get to here. Let's see. Let me mention a little bit about mobility. All right, so like when I think of mindfulness, it's very mobile. Like you can do breathing exercise anywhere. You can do it outside in your car. You can step out of this room right now and go do breathing exercise outside, or you can even do it here. So it's very mobile. And when I think of like traditional healing practices, it's very mobile as well. You can pray anywhere. You can bless yourself anywhere. So a lot of things like that. Traditionally, it is recommended. I know, like, because even when we had the healer over here, he even said, like, it'll be nice if you guys had a hogan. It'll be nice if we had this and that, which is really awesome and amazing. But even he knows, and even he, I mean, was because he did the blessing, is that you can do this anywhere. And people get blessed at hospitals, maybe because they're going through a ceremony, or they're being blessed at maybe at their apartment, or which we were fortunate that was one of the things that we offered. So things like that happen. It doesn't sometimes always happen at the ideal places, but it's very mobile, just like mindfulness, and prayers and blessings are very mobile. And that's why I put this quote here. Like, you don't need to have like the ideal kind of places for your spirituality, for you to connect with your spirituality, for you to like feel like you're being heard, that you're being seen, that you're being blessed. So that's what I was trying to pull in from this quote, is that connecting with spirituality can happen anywhere. And like when I think of like at least in this case, he's referring to churches of like religion. Like I would say, like even Christians, Catholics, whoever, they pray even outside of the church. They pray like probably at home. They pray, wherever on their trips or whatever. They don't just feel like, oh, I gotta go to the church every time to go pray to connect with my God or whatever. So that's why I feel like this is one of the quotes that I feel like I like, is that it's very mobile, how it's just like mindfulness. If you, no matter where you're at, as a person who's like Navajo, so one of the things that I was taught is that when a coyote passes us, when we're driving and a coyote runs in front of us, they always say that the coyote is giving you a message, is telling you that something big is coming, or something important is coming your way. And so if you don't stop and pull over and pray at that moment, the big thing that's coming could be positive or negative. So you gotta pull over and pray, at least the way I was taught. No matter if it's raining, super cold, late at night, I've done this, trust me, it's like, so you go out there and you pray away the negative thing. You say, I say my prayer, have my corn pollen, and I pray, like whatever that's coming, that it not be negative. I say, thank you for the warning, and I'll be real cautious of what's coming ahead. Please don't make it be negative. I do my best to say it in my language, but at the same time too, I still say it in English too. That's why I kind of feel like I can connect. I at least from my perspective, that I'm not fluent in my language, but I feel like I can be seen. I can be recognized because I identify with this tradition or this tribe, whatever it may be. So that's why I feel like, in a way, the inclusion part is really important. So that's one thing I think, like about at least one of the ways I think I pray as well. So I put this on here because that's kind of like the way I looked at it. I built on this quote, is that one of the things that I feel like I just said, if you identify within the tribe, no matter what percent, if that matters, where you're raised, where you're from, either reservation or non-reservation, or village or non-village, whatever it may be. Like, I feel, at least me personally, you're part of that tribe. You're part of the Net tribe, whatever tribe you want to identify with. If you have that connection, you have that heritage or that community. Because on this campus, like, one thing that I intentionally always do when we put on these events, it says, the flyer always says everyone is welcome. And I want everyone to feel welcome. I want like even non-native, non-indigenous to come to these events, learn about our indigenous ways, learn about how we pray, learn about how maybe they can heal themselves too as well, or even indigenous or native tribe members too, that even though they're not from the reservation, maybe not speak their language, not dress traditional, not go to ceremonies, whatever. I just feel in a way that, you belong. I want you to feel like, this is a place where you can also heal and also feel blessed, things like that. So that's why I like the idea that at least this quote was kind of like, it felt like it was more inclusive. So that he was like welcoming everyone, no matter for wherever you're from, or what you do, is that if you want to feel like this is going to be something you feel like could work for you, that it could be beneficial to you as long as you have that idea of sense of belongingness. And so I've been very happy that when we put on these events, like various different tribes come, not just like the tribe of the healer, and also like we've had also at least it seemed like it on my stereotype, but non-indigenous folks too as well. So everybody was very welcome to kind of learn and hear from these, from at least this philosophy and this kind of blessing. So I want to kind of, as a therapist, wait, let me push back here. So like, I think one thing that's really important, like I said, when I think of outcome, when folks get like traditional healing practices done, like I said, I remember a medicine man even saying to me, like, you have to believe in the process. You have to like feel good about things working out. And you need to believe in yourself now. You're going to do well and you will be okay. It reminds me of self-efficacy. So self-efficacy gives you is Albert Bandura's well, he said that it can, if you believe in your skills, your knowledge, your abilities, you can accomplish the tasks and the goals that you feel like you can accomplish. So that it reminded me of that, and also reminded me of self-fulfilling prophecy. So, if you believe in a good outcome, things will work out. And research will support, those who have generally have positive outlook on whatever outcome or situation, they're likely to be successful. I always tell the students that if you believe you're going to fail the test, you're going to behave and interact in a way that you're going to fail the test. If you believe that you're going to pass the test, you're going to behave and feel and interact in a way that you're gonna do what you need to do to pass the test, because you believe in yourself. You believe that you can accomplish it. So it's also a mindset. So it's that self-fulfilling prophecy. So when I think of like ceremony, you get something done and you really truly believe like this could be really helpful to you, and that you're going to behave and act in a way that this healing process is going to be helpful to you. So in a way, it's not only you believe in it, because in a lot of the, like, I'll show a video here, and like it sounds familiar to like what like the healers I work with said. They always tell me, like, at least the ones I work with has said, like, the prayer and the blessings going to take you halfway. The other half is you have to do it. You're going to have to actively do the things that you're supposed to, that you want to accomplish, or that you want to do. Even if you want to heal from illnesses, you're going to have to do the other half. You're going to have to maybe go to rehabilitation, maybe go to your appointments, maybe take your medications that you do, whatever it is, you're going to have to physically do the other half too as well. So it's always like not just solely on the healing process. It's also, it involves you. It involves you as a person. So the other part, so I wanted to kind of say a little bit about, we talked a little bit about, when I heard the definitions, how do you heal? How do we heal? And so a lot of Great definitions, by the way. Nothing wrong with any of that. But I kind of want to add too, when we think of like healing processes, from an Indigenous Native perspective, we also heal as a community. We heal together. And how that plays a role in this that I see is how the togetherness comes is that when we get our ceremonies, at least the ceremonies that I've been involved in, every time my family's been present, and maybe you have not only just your immediate family, but your extended family, and maybe sometimes your friends. And so then they say, why, Minister Man, what's going on? Basically, why am I here? And what do you need? What's going on? How can I help you? Those kind of questions. And that's when people share, I'm struggling in my marriage. I'm struggling at school. I have this health condition. I have this whatever. And so that's when you're honest. You're really being truthful, and you're because that way they can figure out how to treat you, what specific kind of issue or concern or things that you're going through. And the community part is that your parents, your family, your friends, whomever's all there, hears all this. And then they know you're going through this. They can be there to support you through this process too as well. They can show up for you as well and be present for you. So that's where I say, like, we heal as a community as well, because we're in that space where we hear each other and we say, like, we check in with each other. We say, how are things going? Or we're like maybe we're like, how, even just physically, I'll give you a ride, I'll do this, I can do this for you. So we're at this space where we can be open about what we're going through, what challenges we're experiencing. So then we support each other and we deal with it together. We check in with each other and we heal as a community. And then I think about it as a therapist. I have clients that come to my room, my office, and it's just them, unless I'm doing couples work. It's probably them and their partner. But a lot of times it's just them for individual work. And I'm just working with that person. But a lot of times their friends don't know what they're going through. Their family doesn't know what they're going through. And because of confidentiality too, I mean, it's between me and that client. And so I do my best to support them, to meet their goals, to heal, to get well. And so, but they're, again, on their own, unless they share. I need to share with my family, my friends, also what I'm going through. But it's very individualistic. They're going about it on their own, especially if they choose to want to go on their own. But if you think about it from a healing perspective, like they come to the space and everyone they probably love or they feel like wants to be there, they're really open about it. I'm going through this. People hear it and they're there to support you. There's no shame, there's no judgment. Just like, thank you for coming here. Thank you for being honest. We want to help you and support you. And that's where I feel like the healing as a community comes together. And that's why I feel like that's one of the things I really appreciate about this process, that I get why confidentiality is there. But I think like sometimes for like Indigenous communities, I really appreciate that we come with, at least I've seen it, like the communities come together within your family and your friends about what you're going through. And sometimes, you need that support. You need your family to be there, or your loved ones that you feel like could be in that room with you. And so that can be really helpful. So I'm going to show a quick video. I'm going to kind of skip around a bit, but I'll process the video a bit too as well, and maybe open it up for maybe some of your thoughts too about the video. All right. So I wanted to also, like, the video, when I watched it, like, I'm glad he said that. Like 50% too is also on the patient or the client. So I feel like that's a really important piece. The other piece too, that as a psychologist, as I was watching this too, in terms of like maybe dealing with like a traumatic issue or PTSD or a loss, is that if you saw the video, he was like, we got this PTSD done. You're not to think about this or look back or no longer think about it. And that's trauma. And so, or traumatic. And so as a psychologist, we work with a lot of students or like clients and patients that are dealing with some trauma. And we go at the pace, of course, of the client and in their healing process. And so we visit that, we talk about it, we process it, we talk about ways they can kind of cope and understand. And so like this approach, which is a little bit different, is different from our approach, is they get the ceremony done and then they say, don't talk about it anymore. You got to move on. That's it. And so, and if anybody who's ever probably dealt with loss, and they get a ceremony or blessing done, like at least in a traditional perspective, they say, don't bring it up no more. Let's move on. And so that's a challenging part as a therapist. You know, people come and talk about their losses, and because it doesn't just go away just like that. It's always there, and things trigger it throughout your life at various points, and it comes in different. It can sometimes hit you hit some of your senses in a minimal way. Some points maybe it's really hard. And so that's one part when I saw that part or see that part, and I've been in ceremonies where they say, don't mention this anymore. You're going to bring it back up. You're going to bring back all those thoughts and feelings. You can undo what we just did. So that's the part that, I mean, and me, at least I struggle a little bit with that too, because as a therapist, you know, like I said, we spend time processing, thinking about and understanding and trying to get to where they can probably get to have acceptance or move on or cope, whatever it is that they feel like. And so that's the kind of difference I feel like is a different kind of approach in both philosophies. And whatever, like I said, at any day, so it's like whatever works for you, what works for you, choose that path. But that's a difference in probably how trauma approaches, or at least loss and grievances that I've seen. So I'm glad that video did bring that point up, because Western philosophy, at least in therapy, like I said, revisits, and that would be CBT, like thought stopping. Okay, you're thinking about that loss. Okay, don't think about it. That's this classic CB approach of thought stopping, and also to like repression. Freud said one of the defense mechanisms is repress it. Basically, don't think about it, put it down, bottle it up, basically, and don't bring it up. Move on, basically. So that's some things, at least when I think of from a Western psychotherapy approaches, it's like just like not bringing it up. But everybody has different approaches and what works for them. Find what works for you. Maybe, like I said, like we talked about integration. Maybe you get healing done or blessing done, then you also seek psychotherapy as well. I want to say, like, also when a connection to like therapy, anybody who's probably familiar with DBT therapists, dialectic behavioral therapists, they're the one therapists. If true DBT therapists are available to their clients 24/7. They can get calls like midnight, 1 a.m. when they're doing some kind of crisis. I don't know if I could do something like that. I want to have a life outside of my 8 to 5 hour. But when I see traditional healers, they're 24/7. They're available as well, like midnight, 1, 2 a.m. Just some of our healers that came here too. Like I remember I felt bad when, I mean, he was scheduled to see us here at 10, but he was like, yeah, I had a visitor come knock at my door at 2 a.m. and I just got done wrapping up, doing a blessing, and it was like 5 a.m. they were done. And they were here at 10 a.m. and they're just available 24/7. So it reminds me a little bit, at least like a DBT therapist is available 24/7. And so I'm very blessed that we have these individuals in our community because like most offices, including counselors' offices, are business hours, 8 to 5. And so this is like another service that's 24/7. And as a therapist, I always kind of say, build your support system, because you want to have friends and family or people around you that you can lean on, vent to, or get some brainstorm or someone to support you beyond business hours. Because those folks will sit there and be there for you, like however long you feel like you need to be, and they're not limited to like, oh, it's 5, or time to go home, or something like that. So I'm glad that healers and like you all have probably friends like that support each other, which is amazing, that can be there like almost available on 24/7 kind of basis. And then we get to a point where we're like integrating. I feel like I'm really hopeful that even like the videos had the individual at the hospital, and I thought that was pretty awesome. And I feel like we're moving that direction. We're finally getting to a space where like, I mean, at least me, I'm being optimistic. Maybe it isn't, but at least I'm hopeful that it can be considered a form of practice, that this approach can be really helpful in the healing process. And so like, because some of these medicines and herbs and songs of blessings and ceremonies can be very effective. And I think like as an Indigenous Native person, we contribute so much to this modern society. I don't know if y'all know, some of y'all know that aspirin was like definitely the Indigenous folks had a big hand, at least in like creating that medicine that we use oftentimes for fevers or whatever. So, and there are probably other medicines that we use, like tribes use, that is also helpful in the healing, either physically or mentally. So hopefully it can continue to be recognized. And I always kind of emphasize a lot of our contributions to like modern society, because oftentimes unfortunately, some of our education and secondary education doesn't really mention this and celebrate this. So I always try my best to kind of say, we did, we contributed this, we did that. And it's always kind of fun to teach somebody like what are some things we contribute to like modern society too as well. So this is gives me hope that like maybe it can get to a space where it's one of an option that's available to people too as well, like traditional healing practices. And it's not just like on our villages or on reservations. It can be available to like different kind of places and spaces, so that, and it can just like with some organization recognizing it as a practice, they can hopefully also recognize it and see it like that. So that basically concludes my presentation.